Alrighty. We're loud. Cool. Alright. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the August 2008 Deep Cleveland Poetry Hour. I see some new faces, so we'll go over some rules first. We do have handouts. Chris Franke is famous for his handouts. In fact, the first words that Chris Franke ever said to me directly back at the Red Star in the late 90s was, "Do you want to read a copy of my poem?" So, way back when, yeah. Red Star's closed down now. Yeah.
It's in Arabica now.
Is it? Okay, yeah.
Last time I looked.
Yeah, and it'll become a phoenix, and then,
Yeah, when it rises from the ashes.
Right, exactly, and then some corporate mega shop. Yeah.
Actually, he tried to sell the business, and he couldn't sell the business. And it became something other than a coffee shop for a while, and then like a year later, an Arabica turned up.
Oh, there you go. Cool. So we do have some coffee there. Good.
Except it's smaller now. I like it when it had like 2 rooms, and you could.
I just like going in the basement with the black lights and the footprints on that. That was the coolest part. We're reminiscing, sorry. Don't mind us. All right, so we do have handouts tonight, so you can read along with the poetry. We also have little flyers, Cuyahoga Dog, poems inspired by the Cuyahoga River. So go ahead, we'll pass these around. All right. We are going to let Chris read for about 20-30 minutes, let him go, and then we will do the open mic. A couple rules about the open mic. Please, no 4-letter words. The manager is here tonight. All right?
Talk.
So please, let's try and rein ourselves in a little. No words that we can't. Do you need one of these? Yes.
One of those. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're very well. Got it. There you go. Yep. So please, no 4-letter words or anything that's going to get us into too much trouble. Yeah, last month was fun. We pushed that a little, but let's try and rein it in. We will see where we are time-wise. We'll also see by a show of hands how many people are open micing. We may have to cut it down to 1 or 2 poems, so please try and stick within that if you can. Any other questions? Awesome. Christopher Franke was born in 1941 and raised in Lakewood, Ohio. He has been the editor of Everyman and founded Deciduous Press, 1970. Besides his many broadsides and pamphlets, he has published these books of poetry: Title, CSU Poetry Center, and Select Routines, P2B Press, 2007. He is an avid supporter of poetry, that's an understatement, and a frequent reader at all Cleveland poetry venues, and has read with orchestrated accompaniment. At one point, he worked off his community service time for not painting his house by reading poetry to fellow inmates, homeless, nursing home patients, and others. Statement. This is always fun. Call it random, say it's something in the environment, or blame it on the DNA. My maternal grandfather wrote poetry, my mother wrote poetry. At an early age, I wanted to put together a book, never mind what book. Halfway through the 5th grade, to get past a sad situation, I just started devouring books. In the 8th grade, there was an assignment to write a poem, and I solicited the assistance of my mother, and we collaborated on a poem about a pesky fly. As I recall, it got a grade of B+, because I hadn't capitalized the first letter of each line. Fascists. My mother was more hip than my English teacher in some ways. Somewhere in my teens, I got a hold of a copy of Sound and Sense from one of my 8 years older than I twin sisters, and took to it like a duck to water. I recall that in junior high I was rather taken with Edna St. Vincent Millay's Renaissance. In the early 1960s, I wrote some irreverent poems to a college English teacher friend, occasioned by my premature departure from OSU. I wrote a swarm of haikus trying to win a free subscription to the WCLV radio guide. On that station, there was a program called Poetry Seminar done by João Vieira. In 1969, at Tri-C in the sociology course, the instructor brought to the attention of the class that one Leroy Jones, who was socially relevant, was going to be reading in Cleveland, to which reading I went and wrote a poem about. I was also enrolled in a poetry course taught by James C. Kilgore, in which one young lady vocally wondered about the eroticism of much of my poetry. To which I responded by writing a clean poem, which poem was published in Charles Bukowski's Laugh Literary and the Man Humping Guns No. 2. I got hooked up with Cleveland State's Poetry Forum, I had a directory of little magazines, and I was hooked. Ladies and gentlemen, a sort of Cleveland testament to poetry, Chris Franke.